You may be wondering who Samuel and I are. We're going to interview each other briefly. Samuel, who are you? Where are you from? And what do you do?
Right. Where am I from? It's an interesting question, though. It's probably going to need to be dissected. I'm from Bendigo. Yeah. I live in Australia. I'm an Australian, but originally I came from the Congo, Democratic Republic of the Congo. I was born in the central Congo and spent some of my working years, a big chunk of them in the capital city, Kinshasa. So, and then lived in Kinshasa, and I think as far as I can answer the question, I can start telling my entire life story, but I want to make sure that I at least answer the question. Where am I from? I am from the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and now I am living in Bendigo, where I'm settled.
And you're married to an Australian girl?
I am married to an Australian girl. My wife Melissa is from the Mali, which is not very far from here, from a little place called Boat. And so we met in the Congo many years ago. Because you might ask, are you from the Congo? How did you meet the? I'm anticipating the question. We met in the Congo. Started a friendship first, and I did have an interaction with her in terms of mentorship in the things that we do. I am a Christian minister, and somebody who's in love with theology and philosophy. I did some of my tertiary education in theology in the Congo, and I was a church minister there for a number of years before living in the Congo. So I mentored her in the theological things, and we did some projects together. I moved to England to do some extra tertiary education in accounting, economics, and international politics, business management as well. So it was quite a big bunch of studies that I did when I was in England. And then we got married. Our friendship deepened after that. And then 6 years after having known her, I believe, 5 years after having known her, so we moved our relationship a bit more into the direction of wanted to build life together, and so we got married and we settled in Bendigo. So that's short story.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And I understand you're a little politically active.
Yes, I am interested in politics for the simple reason that there are two things that I think are a fundamental pillar for a society. Okay. Those two things are, bring about an impact on the culture. Number one is what's one's theology, your moral stance, what is right from what is wrong, is informed by your theology. By theology, I don't just mean, a theologian who studied God. I don't use that term in that sense. I'm saying whatever you believe about God, whether there is or there is not. And those are the two propositions. Or agnostic, I don't know, will inform your sense of morals. What is right from what is wrong? Who determines what is right from what is wrong? And you can say it's me, or it's a society, it is evolutionary, psychology, whatever your stance about the question of God determines your morals. And your morals determine your sense of governance. The way you relate to others, whether you're doing something right or wrong by someone, you have to determine what is that right thing and who determines what is right. If it's me, it's you. And so for a society to work, you need good theology, you need good governance, politics. So I'm interested in politics for those reasons. I don't know whether that answers your questions or you want to know to which degree.
Oh, well, I won't press you to what stream of politics, because you may alienate some people and win some people. So I might leave that vague. But
I'd like to say something though.
Yeah.
This is really a passion of mine. If somebody get alienated by one's political philosophy, that person is then just demonstrated that they are not ready, I was going to say unfit, but they're not ready to engage in the art of governing. Why? Because in every human interaction, there is going to be differences of life. I have a difference of philosophy on some matters with my wife. We have to govern our house, which means we have to discuss our differences philosophically, theologically, and we have to live together. What I've found quite striking in the Western world at this point, which is what is actually destroying our society, is that if somebody found out my political leaning and then they decided they don't want to talk to me anymore, what they would have done is they want to talk to only people who have the political leaning they like. And now,
well, things have become very polarized and combative at the moment. But we will talk about politics sometime.
Okay, I'll be happy to.
We'll leave that. You're engaged in Christian ministry here in Bendigo. You're fulfilling a pastoral role. Caring for lots of people. I've been along to your church. And I see good fruit there.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I think I've been involved in Christian ministry for 20 years now, 2 decades of Christian ministry, and so which is a life of serving others and so on and so forth. And so, from the background of I've always considered myself to be a life learner. I read a lot of books. I read from people that I disagree with to people I agree with, to general reading for information's sake, and all the tertiary education I have had the fortitude of being able to have access to for a poor boy from the bushes of the Congo. I am very, very grateful to this country in so many ways. Now, I'm in Bendigo, having started a church here. So we're part of a church planting movement. So disciple making. We believe in raising leaders, people capable of navigating the minefield of life with the message of Christ and the message of love, and disciple making and raising leaders and so on and so forth. So it's at the core of our passion. This is why it will always intersect with politics.
Well, does your church have a website?
Our website is down, but people can find us on social media these days. I think.
What I'll do is I'll put a link to your social media page.
Which will
So if anyone wants to contact Samuel and have a chat with him, they can do that.
And I was probably going to say one more thing about me is that I am a lover of what we call the art of clear thinking, the art of discussion, the art of engagement, the art of communication. We run trainings and we train people in how to understand the other person's point of view, to be charitable, and then to communicate your point of view clearly, but yet graciously in such manner that you can foster an environment of understanding. So we've been doing this for a number of years now, and we train people from all sorts of walks of life, from people in Christian ministry to people in politics to people in business, and we run a communication consultancy, business in helping people communicate better.
Right.
And so that too is part of what we do.
Great.
Now, is it okay I ask you a question about
interview me.
Now, you and I, we've been friends for a while, and we've known each other. And I've often found quite interesting because we've had, public discussion on social media, and people who don't actually not know how deep our relationship is, and we thought we probably were going at each other. So
we don't always agree on things.
Exactly. Talk to me a bit more about you, your own journey. Where are you from? That's the same question. Where are you from?
Well, I was actually born not 20 minutes away from here. I was born in Castlemaine.
Oh, okay.
And I now live in central Victoria in Bendigo, but I have lived all over the place. I did university here in Bendigo, and I moved to Melbourne. and I was working for World Vision, international aid organisation, straight out of college in their graphic design department. I'm a graphic designer, communicator, and I've spent my whole professional life in the area of design and publishing. In fact, I became I understood the gospel for the first time and responded when I was 17, just the year before I went to university. And so by the time I finished university, I wanted to consecrate those talents to the service of the Lord. And so I went to work for this Christian organisation in Melbourne, and then after a couple of years, I realised that a trained monkey could do my job, so and there was no opportunities for advancement. So I started my own design studio, and from there I worked for a whole lot of different commercial and charitable organisations, Christian organisations, mission organisations. I'm sure if anybody is over the age of 30, they've probably seen my work without knowing. Because I worked on a number of nationally and internationally distributed Christian publications, and from there I began to write. And so some of my writing began to get into some of those publications, and I also became involved in pastoral ministry. I was involved in some church planting in different places in Melbourne, and exploring the house church model, biblical alternatives to the traditional church model. I call it, and so I was doing that for years, and whilst pursuing other interests simultaneously. I'm interested in alternative building, and built a house up on the edge of Sherbrooke Forest in Belgrade, and from there I was also the Lord called me to start going overseas to Africa. And so in 1996 I began traveling to Africa and doing itinerant ministry in different places, primarily Uganda. So now I've been to Africa like 16 times.
Wow.
And
I understand your wife is from Africa too.
Yes, my wife is from Africa. There's a bit of a story how we met. I had been through this major life event where put it this way, it was a major turning point in my life, and I was at the point where I couldn't see any hope for the future, and some bad things had happened, and the Lord had told me to come away with Him, and so I went back to what I consider my spiritual home in East Africa, in Uganda, and met with a missionary friend who spent time with some of his colleagues ministering to me in my brokenness, and I felt the Lord say very clearly to travel back to Egypt. I had been through Egypt on the way there, sort of exploring a call. And just through the providence of God, I've actually written an article about this, which I might link to, but I met this lovely woman at a museum. I ended up being somewhere where I had no plan to be, and met this lovely woman, and I would never have seen her again except for the fact that a thief stole my phone, and I needed some help to make the police report from someone who could speak Arabic, and the police appointed her as my interpreter, and she had to keep coming back to the police station. So but the day after I met her, I was sort of still feeling the despair of all that had gone on in my life, and I visited Siwa Oasis in the Sahara Desert, and I actually walked out into the desert by myself until I could see nothing but sand dunes in every direction, and such was the crushing despair that I was feeling at the time that I actually contemplated continuing to walk until I would get disoriented, because at the time I felt I had nothing to go back to. My life was just too broken, And yet I had met this lovely woman the day before, and there was something that just wanted to go back to Alexandria to meet her again. And yeah, it's too long a story to tell.
In a way, she saved your life.
In a way, yeah. in a way.
That's such a beautiful story.
I have felt that the Lord has been calling me to continue in the area of publishing, and I have a website called worldviewinteractive.com, which needs updating, and to get into this YouTube publishing, and I have some other interests. I make things like this, and I like to work with my hands, and so I've got a bit of a workshop out the back, and I'm trying to build a little business doing that, and continue doing graphic design. Like that. And yes.
So how did you sort of? I mean, you've talked a bit about your writing and publications and design work, but how did your passion about the audio visual, if you will, the media, like having a YouTube channel, and I have been blessed to be invited by you.
Thanks for asking that question, because some people might be interested. I'm sort of doing this a little reluctantly, because the thing about being a graphic designer, and to a lesser extent being a writer, is that you can be anonymously famous. You can see your work out there, and in your articles you write can go out there, but you don't have to confront anybody, and you don't have to be recognized. I started to get, like all of the things that I've felt really clearly called to do, it begins with this bubbling sort of desire that won't go away. And so I began to see the potential for YouTube or podcasting, to talk about interesting things that will connect with people. And I got to the point where I thought about it for months, and then I decided, no, I'm not going to do it, because the world doesn't need another talking head on the internet. I really believe that. I made that decision that I wasn't going to do it, because the world doesn't need another talking head on the internet. But it wouldn't go away. It just kept. I can't explain it. It was just like something welling up within me that needed to be done. And one thing I've made a practice of doing it at a time when I'm unsure of something is we need to sometimes get a triangulation on the truth. We can't sometimes we can't trust our own thoughts. We can't trust our own feelings. We need some way to sort of independently verify what God is saying to us, and to cut through the confusion and the clouded perceptions. And there's a ministry down in Preston, in Melbourne, that I have been attending for 12 years, which again has saved my life, I think, on numerous occasions. There's a minister down there by the name of Nigel Wright, who has probably the most profound prophetic gift that I've encountered. And on more than one occasion, the Lord has used him to speak through the clutter and bring clarity. And so I don't listen to the man. I lay things before the Lord, and I go down there, and I don't talk to him about it. And I just say, Lord, I'm just putting myself here for you to speak clearly to me, so that I can get a clearer perspective. And so I decided I would go down to Preston and ask the Lord about this YouTube thing, because there was many reasons why I didn't really want to do it, but it was kept coming up, and so I put myself in that situation, and I picked up a friend of mine, and we went down together. And I was sitting there, and Nigel, he walks around the congregation, he prays for people. And he came up to me and he said, I can see that you've got a lot in you to share, and I can see your voice going out over the internet. which was which was just...
Well, there you go. There's another, the internet need another talking head, right?
So, apparently the internet needs another talking head.
Yeah.
So, that's why I'm doing this, and it's been a lot of work and slow progress, but I think it's going somewhere. Yeah. So
there is the power of the spoken word. I think just to add a thought to your own. There is the conflation of the fact that what you say is meaningful only if it was meaningful to 2,000 people, 3,000. How many followers have you got? You've got 10 million people watch your YouTube video. It's the Western world is obsessed with that. Yeah. Whereas, think about your life as you walked into that desert that day. Your life mattered as much. It didn't have to be millions of people walking in a desert. Like, if one person take their life away right now, it's one life too many. Because every single life is precious. So your words could touch one person and save their life. One thing that I found about Jordan Peterson coming, because we talked about him during this time, is he sits there and he cries to the thought that one person walks to his table when it's at this speaking event and says, "You changed my life." That's all it takes. He's like, me, my words, the thing that I say. And so the change of that one person's life, it's not just simply one talking head over the internet. The word you speak, if those words caught someone's attention, the change of one person's life, even if that's all it did, it is a tremendous work. And that sets us free from thinking, okay, well, there's already too many people speaking, but maybe those too many haven't reached everyone. We can't possibly say everybody's been reached. And so it's to say, I personally think what you're doing is fantastic. And I've been, a guest on your program. And so just be encouraged that it is doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. It's been a pleasure to chat together.
Okay. Fine. So that's who these guys are. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe and see what comes up in future episodes. Bye.
Beautiful.